as the crew and Captain Elliot dine for the evening, he then says to Abe, you, Dr. Abe, whatever your name is, yes? I'm going to ask you if you would clean up after the animals in the lower decks. Their stock. Yes, okay then. I mean, you did say you would do anything to pay your way through this voyage. Yes, I did. Who is he? Asked one of the sailors to Captain Elliot. Oh, he's a doctor, says he can't afford a trip back to England, so he's working his way. Oh, right, I see. Abe then clears up the pigsty and excrements and urine of the goats. He then hears barking from a dog. He then says, "Hey, what's going on there, boy?" The dog then quivers and shakes, feeling the presence of something. Then Abe hears or feels the presence of something past him, going, "Hello? Someone there? Hello?" As he turns around, he's then startled by a crewman saying, "Oh, there you are, Doc. I'm sure you know that you'll be, doing the first shift of the night." "The first shift?" "Yes, keeping watch, sail. This ship, it's, on a final voyage." "Yes, of course." "Yeah, well, you do the first watch and then I will join you, and you may then rest for the night," said the sailor. Whilst Captain Elliot sits in his cabin, he writes in his journal, marking that this will be his final voyage before retirement. Later that night, as Abe is then changing shifts with one of the sailors, he then turns in for the night with all the other sleeping sailors. Meanwhile, on the deck, a dog's barking, whilst one of the crewmen say, "Oi, shut up." The dog then hides away. Meanwhile, where the animals are kept, a cow, a pig, and a sheep are there, and a shadow soon looms over them as Dracula sharpens his fangs as he prepares to feast on them. The next morning, Abe is woken by one of the crew saying, "What the fuck is going on here?" What's going on?" He then goes to where the animals were, and they are dead. "Who did this? These animals have been killed. They were meant to be stock delivered to a farm or something." Yes, Captain Elliot said. "Well, looks like they're no good now." "Did you do this, Doc? I hear you doctors love your blood, don't you, in your experiments." Abe then saying, "No, it's not. Look, whatever happened here, I'm sure there's an explanation for it. If I could just examine." "You're a doctor, yes? A doctor for animals?" "Well, no, but I could probably tell what happened to them just by having a look." "Go on then," said Captain Elliot. Abe examines the carcasses, noticing that all these animals have bite marks on their necks and are drained of blood. Explaining this to Captain Elliot, Captain Elliot says, "Who would do such a thing to these animals?" I don't know. But where's that dog? I don't know. I've not heard or seen him all morning. Well, he's got to be somewhere. A sailor then comes and says, Captain, sir, we found your dog. It's not good. Captain Elliot then sees his dog, drained of the blood. Captain Elliot says, who the fuck would do this to a dog? Who the fuck would do this to anything? There's something on here. The only new person on board I see is this doctor. He could be enough, said Captain Elliot. You men and your superstitions. Now look, keep an eye out. There could be some other animal on board that we're not aware of. Just make sure that, the rest of the stock and rations last us. Abe mops the deck and also looks upon the sea in the daylight. As the day goes on, the sun sets, and Abe makes first watch at the steering wheel. Eventually, later on, swapping with another crewman, Abe turns in for the night. Then, the crewman manning the steering wheel gets the sense that he's not alone. He then hears something and goes to investigate. There, he sees someone in the shadows saying, "All right, who are you? Are you some stowaway? Show yourself." That is when Dracula presents himself to the crewman, saying, "Fresh blood." Dracula lets out a roar and bites into him, draining him of his blood. As he feeds on fresh human blood, he starts to de-age as his hair starts becoming dark and he starts to look more in colour, and carries on drinking. The next morning, Captain Elliot wakes up, finding that the steering wheel is unmanned. Calling all the crewmen, he then says, "He was here last night. Wasn't he meant to take over for you, Dr. Abe?" "Yes, and I saw nothing suspicious." "Right. Well, he can't be far. You don't think he's fallen overboard, do you, sir?" said one of the sailors. "Don't be stupid. He's a good sailor. He wouldn't do such a thing. Why would he?" "Something's not right here, Captain. I've got a feeling in my bones. We're bewitched." "Enough with the superstitious nonsense," said Captain Elliot. "You're just being stupid. Look, I don't feel comfortable with this doc around. He's just a doctor." "Yes, but what do we know about him other than him being a doctor? I mean, what is his name? Abe? We don't even know his full name." "Look, that's not important, all right. Look, you need to lock this man up. Lock him up." "Why?" "Because I think he's killing people, and he's thrown this poor chap overboard." "Don't be stupid. I'll have a word with him." Abe is then called to the captain's cabin. Captain Elliot then says, "I'm sorry, but my men are very uncomfortable with you being here and these things that are going on. I'm going to have to, well, keep you in custody for the night. custody? Yes. I'm sorry, but I will have to cuff you up, and until I know for sure that, until I can reassure my men that you are not responsible for this bizarre things that are going on, I will have to do so to put my men at ease. Well, if that's what you must do, then that is what you must do. Abe then is willingly cuffed, and, putting his men's mind at ease, Captain Elliot then tells his crew to get on with their night duties. As another sailor keeps watch, he then gets the feeling that he is not alone, calling out thinking it's one of the crewmen playing a joke. He then feels something is behind him, and it is Dracula, tearing his throat open before he has the chance to scream. Then, the next morning, the captain telling the crew it can't have been Abe. He was in my custody all night. Now there's something else on here, something we're not seeing. Can you think of anything unusual that was brought onto this ship? Could be something that Romanian blokes could sense. Yeah, you speak a bit of Romanian, Captain Elliot asked one of the crewmen. What did he say exactly? That it will bring in the devil on board, but it's just a load of mumbo-jumbo, isn't it? Yes, it is. There's no such thing as monsters. Okay, something is going on here. I think we can rule out you, Dr. Abe. Yes, I think we can. Then, a crewman is then seen in shock and horror going, "Are you alright there, son?" I found... As he stutters, and then the captain says, "Calm down." What's going on? The barrels. Barrels. What about them? Barrels. Looking at the barrels where wheat and apples are kept, they then open too and are shocked to find the body remains of the two sailors that have already gone missing, cut up and ripped apart by something that is unnatural. The crewmen then, feeling uneased, worry that something is on board, and whatever it is, it's attacking at night. Then that's when Captain Elliot then says, "Right, we need to have all hands on deck here. When the night falls, we need to prepare. We could have some animal on board." What kind of animal would chop up a man and put him in a barrel? Look, now we can't panic. We're only days away from reaching England. I think our stop will be Whitby. Now look, just calm down, all of you. Now, Dr. Abe, can you deduct anything about these men, how they were killed? Well, there's no blood, they were drained of it, so I'm assuming they were cut up to pieces and stuffed in these barrels after they were drained of their blood. It's one of them vampire creatures. Don't be stupid, vampires are a myth. Anyway, why would you think it's a vampire? Well, I've noticed that this thing's not been anywhere near garlic. Also, he's attacking at night and drinking blood. Classic vampires. Don't be stupid. There's a logical explanation for this, and we will find it. Tonight, we all keep awake, we keep on guard, and we get this thing, whatever it is. As the night falls again, everyone is on edge, hesitant and wondering what will happen. But nothing does. The next day, paranoia begins to build, wondering why this creature didn't attack last night. One of the crewmen hides away with a bottle of brandy that he downs, just trying to drink his troubles away in a darkened part of the ship. There, in the darkness, he feels a presence. He then turns around and screams. Where his scream is heard, the crewmen quickly rush to the part of the ship and notice that he's bleeding out. Then, as he's bleeding out, Captain Elliot then says, "You, Dr. Abe, do something. He's bleeding out too much. We need to apply pressure quick. Can you save him? I don't know. I haven't quite got all the medical equipment here I need for him." As he's choking on blood, trying to say something, he then says, "What? It's okay. You're going to be fine." Go on, what are you trying to say? And then dies. Captain Elliot then says, "What's he done? What's wrong?" "I'm sorry, Captain, but he's dead. There was nothing I could do for him." "What the fuck is going on here?" said one of the crewmen. "Just calm yourself down. This thing can't be far away if it's just attacked him. We need to be vigilant." Meanwhile, in the dark corner, a bat hangs upside down. Watching them, it is Dracula. As the night goes on, the crewmen all standing at arms with anything they can use to defend themselves. Then Dr. Abe then says, "If this thing is what you are thinking is a vampire, what we're going to need is religious symbols like a cross, a stake to the heart. How do you know about these monsters?" "Well, when you travel and around Europe and are told all these stories like I have, you learn a thing or two. Like one strike to the heart with some wood can make a vampire bleed. The second strike with a good hit can paralyze them, and the third, you get it into their heart deep enough, it'll turn to dust. But always best to decapitate them as an extra precaution. So do you think this is a vampire? I believe in science, not supernatural. It can't be some monster. It's got to be some deranged lunatic." Then one of the crewmen wanders on his own as he hears something call out to him. As he does so, he's then jumped and attacked by Dracula, who feeds on his blood more, and the more he feeds on his blood, the more youthful he begins to look, his hair becoming dark and black and short, his wrinkles reducing, and his fangs getting sharp. He then takes on a bat-like form, like he's in between his bat form and his human form, where he then presents himself to the crew in bat form, saying, "The night is young and I must feast." Then the crew start to fight. They then fight hard, but Dracula is too fast and too strong. But then Abe manages to get a piece of wood that he manages to break off of one of the sterns and gets hold of a heavy object. As Dracula approaches him, he manages to ram the stake into his heart. And then, with that, as Abe attempts to pierce the heart even further, one of the crewmen rams a metal rod through Dracula's shoulder, piercing Abe's shoulder in the process, transferring some of Dracula's blood into Abe. He then sees something like his entire life before him, going, "The fuck? You can't be. That's just stories." "The monsters of the night. Everything you fear is real." Then Dracula pushes Abe off the rod and gets another crewman and tears his head off. Then, as he approaches Captain Elliot, he then presents a crucifix to Dracula. Then Dracula says, "You have the cross, but you don't have the faith." Dracula then holds the cross as it melts in his hand. And then, as he is about to feed on the captain, Abe then rams a wooden plank through his chest, just missing his heart. Dracula then grabs Abe and throws him onto the deck, where he puts his finger in his wound, twisting it, and then the captain fires a bullet at him with a pistol. Dracula then says, "I will enjoy feasting on you, mortal. I know what you are," said Abe. Dracula then throws Abe overboard. As for Captain Elliot, he continues to shoot at Dracula. As Dracula swoops in his half-bat form, he then gets the captain and tears his head clean off. As for the other crewmen that remain, he picks them all off one by one. As a storm picks up, the sea gets rough, and the rain falls heavy. Dracula lets out a heinous screeching roar as he then feasts on the blood of all the crewmen. As for the ship, the Demeter then makes land as it crashes to a small beach on Whitby. Dracula then turns into a bat, and then again into a black dog-like creature as he jumps off board the ship. The next morning, Abe, now floating on a piece of debris, looks at the sunrise and says, "I'll find you." He then notices the horizon of England. He then paddles his way back to shore, where he's bleeding out, but manages to stagger and make his way to a small pub where he collapses. A few days later, Abe tends to his wound and then tells the landlord that he is a doctor and he will be fine. He then asks, whereabouts is he? The local says, you're in North Yorkshire. North Yorkshire. Yes, the nearest town's Whitby. Then, some young boy then bursts into the door saying, hey, have you heard the news? A ship crashed up on Whitby, and the crew are all dead, all ripped apart, all blood-sucked. I don't know the full details, but yeah, it washed up a few days ago, and, well, and then Abe asks, wait, what was the name of this ship? The Demeter. Abe then gets his coat and then says, I need to get to Whitby. He then makes his way to Whitby. Later that evening, at a tavern, Abe sits as he keeps vigilant, feeling Dracula's presence, as he has now Dracula's blood in his system. He feels a connection to Dracula. As for Dracula, now young and renewed, with dark slicked back hair and a youthful look, he then senses Abe's presence. He then leaves the tavern. As his shadow passes by Abe, he then feels Dracula's presence. Dracula letting out a cackle as he knows he is close by. Abe then saying, I'm gonna find you and send you back to hell. By any means necessary, wherever you are, monster. Then the landlord says, will you be lodging here for the night, sir? Yes, I will. Then I just need your signature here. Abe then signs himself in, writing his full name, Abraham Van Helsing.